Yes, yes, I am. Hi, Malika. Malika's joining us offline today. Here's Kim.
Take your breath. Don't worry, man.
You're on record, but we just.
Not shortly, and I apologize ahead of time. I do have to leave a little early, so I may have to leave at about 5:45.
So anyone on the council that want to move stuff, we can, you make your vote before we do the agenda.
So let's see, do you want to call the meeting to order?
Meeting to order, clock. Today is 3/25/2024 for the DD, Clackamas County DD Advisory Council. May I ask if we are in quorum or not today?
We do have a quorum, actually. We have
Alright.
one. Wait, do we have Lisa and
We have 4, maybe, including me, 5, maybe?
I think
No.
I think 5.
Sarah and Shasta
Yeah.
I think is
and.
Shasta with Lisa?
Yes.
Okay, I was like, I didn't want to, I just saw like half of your face, and so I was like, I don't want
Yeah.
to assume, but I
We
think.
were just trying to decide how we want to do this.
Okay, perfect. So, okay, so I can count you as 2.
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, 4, right? 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
Alright, so it looks like we are in quorum. Do we need to approve of last month's meeting agenda?
The meeting minutes from
Minutes.
last, from 2/26, yes.
How many people do we have altogether?
1, 2, 3, 4.
There's 4, yeah.
Exactly.
Including me?
Yes,
Exactly 4.
Alright, so that means it's in quorum at 4, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Honestly, I did not read the minutes for this last quarter, so we will have to still approve them if you guys would like to, or pass it on for the next month's meeting. Which will only be in balance. I would approve it on my side. Any objections on as presented in meeting minutes of last month? I hear no objections, and they will be approved as submitted. And that will be that part. Agenda.
So as you guys know, we were supposed to have Johnny Glenn from North Clackamas Parks and Rec, but she is not able to join us this evening. We are working on potentially getting, sounds like maybe one of the leads from her teams that will be joining us at a future point, but I'm not sure when that is yet. So I will keep you guys updated on that. So I think we can probably just move down the agenda the way we have it, and I think we'll just have lots of.
Do we need a second, third on that to change, or can we do it as presented, even though presented was not on email with changes, Johnny? Well, we do have an email with changes, Johnny.
Yeah.
I did even.
So that would be a presented a non-adjustable thing if the council denied. So the question is, do we approve of the agenda of today's meeting as presented? Do I hear any objections? As I hear no objections, it sounds like the committee has approved as presented in ways as we continue today's meeting. Thank you, guys. Hopefully said everything right in Robert rule order. There we go. All right, so as we will say, what we are gonna be talking about other solutions within Rex, or are we gonna go maybe with our guests?
I think, so the next thing we have on the agenda is, I think is a topic that John wanted to bring up, is if there's any other guests that the council would like to invite to our meetings regarding recreation.
That's up to the council. Do we want to continue the topic point of recreation? Do we want to continue the relationship within Johnny and other departments within the county programs? My question, and I'll explain a little bit more.
Well, I'm still happy to reach out to Westland, Lake Oswego, Oregon City, you know, whatever. If you guys feel that would be beneficial, I'm happy to do it. And I don't know, it's possible that someone would say they would come, that they'd be happy to come to the meeting. So I just can't speak to that yet.
Important to have that type of conversation, I think, in ways as an advocate, in ways, even if it just roots into a internal conversation, but I do think it's important to invite those people within the county and county within the public.
Yeah.
Adult foster home, who's the representative for that again?
Sarah?
Sarah Lambert. Would you like to
Yes.
continue this conversation for the future, after this last run, or would you like to, not move on, have another conversation? And who would you like to invite? Would it be the people who make the dancers, like Johnny, I believe, does do the dancers? What else, people-wise or community-wide, would you think would help your community within the recreation side of the village?
I feel at this time that I was satisfied with our meeting last time, and we're gonna have some follow-up answers. I believe, if I remember correctly, he was gonna figure out some information, so I'm happy waiting for that. And then there's some other things on my own side with other fellow providers where I'm kind of trying to see if anybody else has any suggestions or ideas and things like that. So I'd be interested in maybe coming back to this topic, later on down the year, in a few months maybe, but I'm satisfied right now with what we started with.
Thank you very much for your opinion, knowing that it's important of how you raised the question. Please, staff, I know you guys have very ambitious curriculum development within 12 and Parks and Rec to other situations. Are we gonna want to continue the conversation within Clackamas County and invite guests? Or are we gonna do another idea as we move forward? I can put my opinion
agree.
walking first.
I agree with Sarah. I think we could park it for now, and pick it up later.
Awesome. For myself, I agree in ways that we do, when Johnny comes in or someone in the management side, I think we've had a conversation to expand the knowledge of what, we wanted as the adult to, swim to other recs. I do appreciate you guys' effort in ways that the North Clackamas Parks and Water Sports, Lisa, I believe it was you or someone that went and did that initial work while we collaborated with each other. For me, I think we can get to a point, but I do think there should be more options within those with adult and services within the opportunities. Definitely since SB 819 has passed. In ways of, if you guys don't know it, full inclusive education for those with disabilities. And definitely as summertime options are becoming more into the legal framework within certain opportunities of community involvement to schooling and everything. It is important to me to have opportunities that others get from the rec side or from the county side within those things. I don't care if it's from YMCA or Metropolitan Family Services Sun Program, but I do think that having those connections within a council view and a county view while we transition to other opportunities to sports and networking to other opportunities within the city. I would love to have that further conversation, but I understand that in this space, we've done everything we could for this space for now as we move forward after North Clackamas comes. Sarah, please, I would maybe even invite, I would like to suggest the council to invite, one of the Westland Lake Oswego, reps, because it is important to have those type of external community partners within, the county, purview within a conversation in these types of spaces. But I also understand they have their own priorities and their own, drive and direction and ways that they need to communicate. So, but I would love to that, and we'll talk to the co-chair during next meeting, or when North Clackamas Park has, in ways that we can still have that last part that Sarah Lambert sounds like the adult foster homes and stuff like that have been taken care of, at least in this part of the conversation. So thank you very much for both of you guys who worked on that. Anyone else on the meeting I'm forgetting that in this conversation space? Okay. So, you wanna introduce our guest,
Sure, I was just going to,
or am I forgetting something on?
yeah, I was just gonna give a list of the other, before we reintroduce Ken Hansen from our abuse investigations team. I did want to give a list of the other parts of our program that we talked about inviting to come speak to the council, so you guys kind of had a clear idea of like all the different kind of subunits of our program. So I was going to write these out, but then I realized that you can't see my screen. I can't copy and paste. So we have eligibility, we have our DD licensing team. We have our ONA assessors, we have abuse investigations, which we have here today. We have our children's team, our adult in-home team. We have our adult residential, which is group home, foster home, and supported living. And then we have a couple other smaller,
Admin.
oh, admin.
Mhm.
So I think we have our ARPA folks.
Did you say ONA assessors as well?
I did. So today we have abuse investigations here. Looks like Sarah, you have a question.
Yeah, thank you, Kev.
Yeah, just really quick, Amy, for some, I don't know if anybody needs clarification on what the difference would be between like adult in-home versus adult residential. I just wanted to make sure everybody understood kind of what that meant, because I know, like, we know the lingo, but
Yeah, no, that's a
sometimes-
great question, right? And please feel free to speak up because there's a lot of acronyms.
Yeah.
I'm 5 years into the county and I still don't know all the acronyms, and then some acronyms have like multiple meanings. So yes, so our adult in-home folks are the people who are getting services, living at home with either by themselves or with their family. And then our adult residential are the adults that are living in a group home or in a foster home or in a supported living. So,
Who does the host-
not at home.
Who does the host home? As an advocate, who does the host home?
Children's services, and that's children's residential services.
That sounds right, thank you.
Which I'm still very much learning about, so.
Yeah, well, we all are. Host homes are relatively
New.
new
Exactly.
again in the state of Oregon.
Yeah, because it's new, it goes to children.
Yeah, but yeah, host homes are.
Yes.
Services, not adults.
Okay.
So I have, so today we have abuse investigations here with us. Next, next month we'll have our ARPA. So our ARPA project coordinators, we have one of them here today. You guys might remember Georgetta, she's on the screen. So if you have questions that come up later on, she's here and is happy to answer. But she and our other project coordinator, Tim Hanlon, will be here next time to kind of talk about where we're at with all the emergency fund grants and the provider engagement project. So they're going to be speaking a lot about that. So I guess one thing that would be helpful to know is who you want to hear from next. Oh, and we're also going to have licensing next meeting. So from there, we would have ONA assessors, eligibility, and then our children's team, adult teams, admin support. So it just helps us to know how to prepare them if you guys know which ones you want to speak to next. Would it be helpful if I put it in the chat?
Yeah, I would say yes.
I'm on 2 computers right now, guys. I'm confusing my own self.
I'm sorry, can you just tell me, I missed the name of the person that's there with you? From where?
Ken Hansen.
Okay,
Well, we have a couple now. So there's Ken Hansen, and he's from Abuse Investigations, who just raised his hand. And
Okay.
the person who just walked in is Austin Robinson.
Hi.
And Austin is a program supervisor, and he's on both the children's team and on the adult in-home team.
oh, great.
So some of our newer thing that we are doing is we have supervisors that kind of co-lead teams. So we're all involved in each other's things.
Are you a member of the public right now or working officially?
Working officially, technically.
If you don't mind, the council, I would like to probably have them sit near Ken. Would that be okay with you guys? Rather than have them?
This next account.
And we can at least see him and see him a little bit closer, and hear him a little bit closer. Do you have any questions?
Amy, can you put their names in the chat for me, please?
That's what's happening right now, Lisa.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm doing these one at a time because it's, oops. It's your new last name. Yeah. Did I spell it right or is it Ian? Okay. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, spelling. Okay.
Amy, I'd be really curious in the ONA assessors, personally. And then I don't know if you would be able to answer it, but I wonder if any of the ONA assessors would be able to answer, or who would be able to answer when maybe the ONA would become kind of the solid rate tool, because isn't it moving in it, we're moving in that direction at some point, hopefully. I'm Kim, I don't know, I'm pretty sure I've heard that, but.
Like
maybe
Kim
they
or
can-
Stacy is gonna be
Point people.
the ones who can answer
Yeah.
that most accurately, although I don't know that they know exactly when either.
Well, it's, you know, we're in the maintenance of effort right now, but foster care, of course, is its own unique, adult foster care is its own unique being because of the collective bargaining agreement and what they agree to as the rate setting tool, right? So that is the difference in why adult foster care may be waiting longer, possibly, potentially, but we're not at the bargaining tables, Sarah, so we, as in the county, are not part of that, but the state is. So I would imagine at the next, for the next contract, you know, the next bargaining agreement, will be brought. If it wasn't brought this time around, it will be for the next one.
Hopefully, I do know that from just folks I've talked to, the whole ONA process seems to be sort of a mystery. So I think that would be kind of cool to have them on here and kind of educate everybody on the process.
That would be.
So I see other heads nodding, so.
Yeah, I agree.
Give them a minute to settle down. We will definitely go into it.
But not right now, but just in the future.
I'd be happy to talk about the ONA process.
Ona's are Stacy's favorite.
Yeah.
It starts at 5:30 AM in the morning, we start talking about ONA.
Yeah.
Oof.
Probably got coming in 2025, right? We can talk later.
Yeah. That's right.
So I really appreciate that you guys are putting these in the chat, so we can capture those, in the minutes. And like I said, today we're gonna have, we have abuse investigations here, and then next time will be ARPA and then licensing. But then after that, we can stagger them the way that you guys have requested. Okay, so without further ado, Ken Hansen
Thank you.
from Abuse Investigations.
I'm not sure where the sound is picking up, so can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, perfect. Okay. So I definitely want to leave a lot of space for questions and answers. I'll definitely do my best to answer every question. If I don't have an answer, I will get it. So just an overview of our program, we have 6 abuse investigators today currently. And that's been a pretty significant change in the last 2 years, I think. So I mean, at one point in the recent past, there was 1 investigator, then 2. So we're really working through a lot of investigations now. With 6 investigators, and I don't think that we're gonna need to decrease that number of investigators just based on the amount of work we're doing right now. Last year, we conducted or reviewed 434 allegations. This year to date so far, we are looking at, we have 37 investigations open right now at this moment. Every time we receive an allegation, we have about a 55-day turnaround to initiate, conduct interviews, review records, and then complete that investigation. In full transparency, that timeline has not been consistently met historically, just based on the sheer volume of work. Our goal is to meet those timelines going forward. So part of that is communicating to providers, people who were affected by an incident, people who need to know the outcome of the investigation or a screening. And so if you find yourself involved in a situation of, you've reported something or you've become aware of something that you need to kind of know about, you're not getting all the information, I would encourage you to reach out to us. You can reach out to me. We're still, we have found that information in our system, our shared system CAM, which includes all the contact information for providers, individuals in service, in a variety of different service providers. Sometimes the contact information in that system is not current. And so we are sending notifications to providers, agencies, and maybe they're not getting it because the executive director who was there is no longer there. So please feel free to communicate. Let's see here. So in addition to like, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, can we, I don't know if everybody else is familiar, but can we maybe back up and like who submits an allegation?
Anybody. So I mean, everyone here and on the screen, I assume, is a mandatory abuse reporter. But we receive reports from law enforcement, from hospitals, medical offices, neighbors, friends, family, anybody.
Individuals themselves.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can, yeah, anybody can report. Mandatory reporters obviously have an obligation to do so, but there's really no, and I think one of the most important things for everybody to know is that there's no wrong report. If you're concerned about something and you're not quite sure, definitely make the report. Sometimes we get calls from people asking if they should report something, and the answer is always yes, because if you are asking yourself that question, then yes, you should. So we don't mind. We definitely don't mind. There's no wrong report, or there's nothing that's going to be, that's too insignificant or whatever concerns might exist around it. Does that help?
Yes, and that's for adults, right? You guys send things regarding children's concerns to a different place.
Yeah, so adults currently enrolled in IDD services over the age of 18, even if a person is not necessarily enrolled, we can still provide some support and follow-up. We just can't go through the entire investigative process, but every call we get, every concern that we get, we're going to make sure that it gets to the right place. So if it's an adult not receiving IDD services over the age of 65, we will cross-report that to Adult Protective Services with aging and people with disabilities. If it's a child under the age of 18, we will cross-report that to Child Welfare. If it is an incident that involves a possible crime, we will report that to law enforcement. And I'll say that on the part of reporters, one of the most frustrating things that we encounter is that when we do cross-report to law enforcement and a legal investigation is opened, I mean, whether it's the sheriff's office or local city police, those investigations can take us significantly, they're much longer than ours. And unfortunately, we're not really able to conduct or commence any kind of investigative activities until they've given us the go-ahead. So that extends our timeline. We actually have what's called a deviation process where we have 6 months to follow up with law enforcement. And then once we get that completed report back from them, we'll do our piece. But I'll say, yeah, people do get frustrated by that because that can take a very long time. That doesn't mean that you can't call and ask for updates or just let us know you're frustrated. We'll try to connect you with anyone that we can who can provide useful information. Of course, when anything is under investigation, there is a lot of information that cannot be shared as well, but yeah, what else would be helpful or useful to know?
Looks like Shasta has her hand raised.
Here, thanks for being here. I'm just curious what sort of investigations wouldn't go to law enforcement? It seems like if there's suspected abuse that like all of them would. So is that kind of your major, you were saying it's really difficult to get that first 55-day turnaround. Is that why?
Oh, that's a really good question. So yeah, that's true. That a lot of these would, so I mean, any allegation of abuse is violating a statute. But it's a matter of whether or not the law enforcement agency that the information is reported to is going to open an investigation. They may determine that they're not going to open an investigation and ask that we do that first. So if there's not a situation that they're immediately going to investigate, then we will move forward with our investigation. And if it is determined that a crime probably occurred based on the information that we have, then we will then submit that to law enforcement and the district attorney's office. So there are two different avenues that it can go. But yeah, that's a really good question. And you would, well, I understand why you would ask it. But there are a lot of situations that are not deemed yet ready to be investigated by law enforcement.
Then what would you say is kind of your biggest barrier to getting the investigations completed in 55 days?
Well, I mean, outside of the law enforcement, the primary barriers are just getting in touch with people, getting the information. I mean, it's understandable that people aren't going to want to return calls necessarily if I mean, this is not a comfortable situation for anyone to be involved in, but really getting cooperation and return to communication is the biggest barrier. But historically, I think the main barrier has just been workload, with one or two investigators carrying what we're seeing now is like close to 500 allegations in a year. That's just too much. So with the size of the team we have right now, I think it's very possible, and that's absolutely our goal. So I mean, barring people not returning our calls or not answering the door, or all the things that we encounter, we definitely expect to be meeting those timelines.
Yeah, Lambert?
Hi. I have two questions, I guess. So the first question would be, is there a pattern of abuse allegations that you see, just kind of out of curiosity that you could share with us that doesn't obviously violate anybody's personal privacy? And then second would be, is there like a severity level? So when you have reports come in, do some of them kind of get bumped higher to like a higher level of urgency? How do you organize those reports?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I think I'll answer the second one first, because that's a really good one. They're both good ones, but anyway, I'm bumping that up on the severity list. So that there is, so every investigation has a 55-day timeline, but if we do receive a report that seems like there's an imminent risk, we also, I mean, part of our investigation process is ensuring protective services are in place. And so that might mean immediately going out to the home of the person or wherever the person is and coordinating resources to make sure that they're safe and they're healthy right away. I mean, for some people that ends up being a hospital, For some people, it ends up being just an alternative living situation that's temporary. Some people, it's a permanent change in living situation. I mean, it really varies pretty widely. I will say a barrier to that, for people living independently who don't necessarily want to leave their living situation in spite of what's happening. That's a really sad reality that we run into. But people living on fixed income, $600 is a lot of money. If that goes to law enforcement, they might not consider that a lot of money, so that might kind of fall down on their list of priorities, except that they are going to investigate it, so we have to delay our part. Anyway, we can still ensure some protective services are in place. We just have to kind of negotiate that with whatever law enforcement entity we're working with. Outside of financial exploitation, neglect is very common because it covers a really broad range of incidents, from something that probably most people would consider relatively minor on the surface to, pretty serious situations that result in hospitalization or unfortunately sometimes worse. But yeah, so financial exploitation, neglect, by far the bulk of what we see.
Chair, I'm gonna cut in at the advocate if you don't mind. My hand went up a little bit earlier, but my hand. Neglect, going backwards, forward, hopefully. Neglect means the client themselves being neglected, or the whole another issue that I may need to understand as an advocate.
That would be a person receiving services who is not receiving an appropriate level of service.
Understandable, definitely. And then, all right, what is the cross relationship within law enforcement laws, within the police, the fire department, and other things that where one law, you have to have a certain amount of money making before they will investigate it versus say, ODS, as we go, $500 out of a, $700 check is a lot of money sometimes for some of these people. What other, department relationship in crossing your communications within the agencies, and what barriers are you maybe taking to within the relationship? It doesn't have to be $500 to the police, but other cross-departmental relationship within state law that we may or may not have to look forward to understand better as we do your job in 55 days or less.
That's a good question. I think that, well, I would say a benefit, not necessarily a barrier. A benefit is the communication that we have with law enforcement agencies locally. We do have a monthly standing meeting. It's a meeting with law enforcement agencies throughout the county or district attorney's office. And so we can have open conversations in a closed setting about these situations. And frankly, if something's not moving as quickly as we feel that it needs to, we can express that in a constructive and professional way. But I mean, we've seen actually several situations that have kind of escalated effectively as a result of having those discussions. Sometimes people just need to really hear it, and to gain that clarity about what's really going on. Because when you get a report on paper, sometimes it looks one way, but when you hear it fully described, it can be something different. So that's a really positive thing.
And then a follow-up, Sarah, on one thing, and we'll move on to your side, and if anyone else has questions, please raise your hand. Knowing that the DA and certain other relationships within government officials is hard to communicate with those with disabilities sometimes within those relationships in the way that legal language is different than, say, advocacy language or other, things for support for those with disabilities. What is the living situation while someone reports with disabilities? Is it pulling them out in ways of their life and how they do it? How are they protected and how are they moving forward within the free determined life with the people who are implementing services? Now, even ask you guys if you can please to see the cross communications of how you guys implement services while reports going on, and the way that my question is directed to you for now, but I would love to have a cross relational explanation so we know, what how someone is living because I can imagine paying rent, you know, and being stuck, you know, at the end of the month in ways that, you know, trying to make a report. But there's certain stressors that we may have to communicate while we try to put an investigation or a complaint or something in process.
Yeah. Really good question, and that's, I think that's probably the number one fear that I hear from people when they report is how is this gonna affect the situation I'm in right now if I'm reporting the person I rely on, so that's, I thank you for that.
But I would like to know what your stories would be about the living situation while someone reports. Versus, you know, because DA has a different language. The different other departments have different languages that we have to take these people out of these situations now. Versus the disability will, you know, there might be other situations. So can you again, to press on it, explain while someone's reporting the living situation that you see, and then they can point out what they need to point out on that side.
Well, I think if I'm understanding, well,
How does the living situation change when someone reports?
yeah, and it doesn't always change. It really depends on the nature of the situation and the level of risk. So,
The setting.
yeah, and the setting for sure, yeah.
So a level 5 has a different living situation than a level 1.
What do you mean, John? What level are you talking
I'm
about?
talking about all levels, but what I'm trying to point out is how do we protect those with disabilities while reporting a abuse investigation in ways that we can still serve the needs of those people with disabilities without taking away if they may or may not be fine on one department, cross departmental relationship where it's hard to communicate with the DA or DRO or other communications because across language compatibility, across laws that are different in different areas of town, and how we still maintain that within the investigation during it in 55 days or less.
If there's concern that the report or the investigation is gonna compromise.
I push it.
Oh,
No,
yeah, so, so the person, like the alleged perpetrator, the person who is alleged to have committed the abuse, is not going to know that the person made the report. And sometimes, usually, they're the last person contacted, so we're gonna conduct as much of the investigation as we can. Before.
And how do we show the people once the investigation has been implemented? How do we show those with IED in Buckley County in ways of how, you know, of the service needs versus the legal need?
So case management services are part of, you know, when Ken talked about ensuring protective services, that is one of the case managers' roles as well. They're involved in protective services. So throughout an investigation, a service coordinator, case manager is going to be working with the individual to ensure that they're getting choice advising. Do you want to stay where you're living? Do you feel safe? Do you want to move? You know, whatever that might look like for that person. What we are not is the DD police. We will not be going in and, you know, somebody living at home or living with their friend and the friend's the abuser, potentially the alleged person. And they're like, we don't want to leave. We do not have it. The authority to go in and take somebody out of their home, in that situation.
Thank you.
Right, so people living in their own homes, living with their family, I mean, actually, just about anywhere, depending on the circumstance. Are going to have a choice around where they live. And whether they want to engage in the protective services we're offering, which could include an alternative living situation. Now, obviously, there are circumstances and situations with licensed providers that may be impactful if, depending on the circumstance, where if that provider is unable or has been shown to be unable to provide the supports necessary for the person. And it really would fall on us to say this, you're not able to stay with this provider, but here are your other options, but those situations are, you know.
I'm not gonna look for temporary hotels and other stuff that's been going on and other issues, but I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
And ways to try to get better.
Yeah, but and service coordinators connecting people to resources is always, you know, if somebody's been impacted by abuse, they try to support them through getting counseling, you know, setting them up with other services that they might be looking for after having that experience. So they, you know, or it could be a payee, maybe that they, you know, they decide they want support or help with their money because they've been taken advantage of financially, they might help them get signed up with a payee. It would just be different kinds of things like that.
Well, that's one of the expertise of the PA or the FD, all the other people I appreciate. Thank you. Sarah, short.
I was just wondering, if you had any idea, any thoughts on why the numbers are increasing? And has this sort of cycled through at different times where it goes up and down? And also, I hesitate to blame COVID for every single thing, but I mean, do you think that had an impact on numbers increasing? Or, you know, I'm just curious if you expect that numbers will continue to increase or that they might start to slow down a little bit.
That's a good question. COVID for sure has had an impact. I mean, yeah, I would say certainly. And Shasta mentioned that when the pandemic stimulus funds ran out, probably had something to do with it. So there's also, I mean, there are two pieces. One is positive and that hopefully people are reporting more of what they see. And that is one contributing factor because I mean, the more we do outreach and kind of let people know who we are and what we do, that has resulted in more frequent reporting. And it's sometimes it's just questions or relatively minor concerns, but that still is reporting.
The other piece that I say is accounted for a lot is that people are being seen, right? So we have service coordinators out there now, we have licensors out there now, we have just people being seen in school, kids are going to school and people are going to doctor's offices and they're actually being seen for the first time in, well, I mean, increasingly so over, you know, now. We've been out of the PAT for a very short time, but are, you know, as services start to become what they were before, and people are being seen more, or people are going, service coordinators and licensors going into homes and are being like, okay, this slid backwards while we were in here and now we're helping people catch up on remembering, here's all the things that you need to make sure you're doing. So I think that is a big piece, is just people are being seen now that during the public health emergency, we're isolated away from their supports that they had. So that's the other thing I think is happening right now too.
Karen Lambert.
Couple more questions. I wrote them down, so a few, but I'll try to make sense of it all for you. What are the outcomes of founded abuse? So if a facility has a founded abuse, what are the outcomes? Like what happens? And I'm asking this generally, I have a decent idea as an adult foster home provider, but kind of for everybody else. So does the providers have to then list, hey, I am a home with founded abuse? So if, you know, a family member were to be looking at a home, are they going to be able to see that this provider has had abuse allegations? What kind of things are options for people to know that a facility might have history with that?
That is a good question. What really happens is kind of outside of our office, it goes to the state. For review, sometimes there are licensing related sanctions or fines. There are, Yeah, those things those decisions are made outside of our office after we send the determination along, but, let's see this. Can't remember the second part of what you asked. I'm sorry, there was a.
Is there a place where they can go look to see?
Oh. And, you know, I'm not aware that I've heard of a database in development, but I don't.
Not on the ODDS side, APD has one.
Yeah,
But ODDS, not that I'm aware of, there isn't a place where they can go, it's public, should be public record, but I'm not aware of a database where they actually list that provide, you know, if a provider has a founded allegation.
Just curious if that was just made available, because I would imagine if I was looking to place my loved one, I'd probably want to know for sure.
Yeah, and it's not a secret. I mean, if an agency has had a founded allegation, the caveat to that is, we're not gonna say, you know, the outcome, it's, has this home ever had a founded allegation of abuse, and we would be able to say, yes, they have, and that, you know, it'd be very limited detail. So it would be, you know, it was financial exploitation, well, you don't know what that was, because you don't know that it was maybe they did something and then they corrected it, but it actually, you know, resulted in something else, and so, yeah, it's good to know that, and if you're seeing like a pattern, like, oh my gosh, this place had 6. But you're still not gonna know, like, if you see that they did have something potentially, what that actually was.
I just want to note there's a few things going on in the chat. Lisa, I see your hand up, but I think
Thank you.
Shasta had pointed out a few things in the chat, so I just want to make sure that gets.
Into the recap.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yes, so, that was actually Lisa, it was you. Can you tell us the total number of clients served by these services, children's team, adult in-home, adult residential, and can I confirm that you only serve Clackamas County? So I just put that children's are through DHS, and then I gave the numbers about the individuals we serve in the county. And yes, only Clackamas County, although I'll let you.
yeah, that's true.
Okay.
But we do screen calls for people receiving services outside of Clackamas County, and we will cross-report to the appropriate county. We just won't conduct the investigation.
And then Shasta says 500 of which are reporting abuse every year.
It's not 500 people, there are some people who it's repeat.
And those to clarify, those are like allegations, but there's also them founded, which is you actually investigate, correct?
Oh, right. That's just.
So those are people calling in saying, hey, I have a question about something that is occurring,
Yeah,
not actual founded abuse allegations,
Right.
correct?
right,
And founded means you actually found that there was abuse going on.
exactly, yeah, it's not that.
Or, yeah, correct, or that they went through the investigation and found that it was not substantiated.
Okay.
So, I mean, we conduct investigations where the result, the outcome is we found out that no, it didn't actually occur, or it didn't rise to the level.
So I just wanted to clarify, because I think if you don't know the lingo, then it maybe sounds really
How
alarming,
many
but
were
actually
founded?
reports are good, right? Because then people are talking to us.
Yeah.
But it's the founded piece, right? That's the part that's, I think, where we're more concerned.
Yeah, how many were founded reports? Do we have that data?
I don't have that data pulled up, but I would say, just to give an estimate, it's probably 1/5 of that number. Maybe.
Okay. And then, can I just confirm that, is it my turn? Sorry.
Yeah, yes, Lisa, please go.
Can I confirm that I heard one of you say that financial exploitation is the #1 complaint or the #1 founded reason?
Oh, I would just say allegation, so complaint, allegation, yeah.
What's the 1/5 founded issue? Is it
Oh,
neglect?
that's
Or is it
all
financial?
kinds of things, but I would say probably neglect primarily would be the.
Okay,
if
and
I
this
were
is
to
just
predict.
in Clackamas County, and this is just with adults with intellectual or developmental disabilities, correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
and that licensing link, I don't think that is DD specific.
It's long-term care. Yeah, it's long-term care licensing.
So on the chat log, there's been a website.
Yeah, so that website is not specific to DD. Is that correct?
Right, yeah, that would be APD, like aging people with disabilities, long-term care services.
Are there any training
Keep looking.
for people to navigate in a way that when I hit 65 years old, it'll be different in my world than there is when I'm transitioning out of college? In these types of, like I said, there's a different way to talk to a DA than there is for DRO versus, as a client. And other, complex information and stuff like that. Is there any training?
For citizens,
Just citizens in Clackamas County or anywhere within the abuse department?
I don't think so.
And,
I don't think so.
something that maybe ODEF needs to take on.
Well, so, and to be, I guess I wanna make sure I understand your question. When a person with an intellectual disability turns 65, nothing changes. Ken's team would continue to support then any allegations of neglect or abuse. It's people who are not eligible or not enrolled in DD services and they're over 65. Those are people who are served by APD.
I think on my end, where I know some people, I know maybe allegedly, hopefully I said that right. That they maybe abuse their power in certain ways, but I know it would help someone like myself who hasn't been in service until later in his life. Where it's different call to protect, in one environment than there is while receiving services for a lifetime. In these types of services, so that's my advice within this side where I think. So we may or may not have other connections within the department in conversations of how we try to report and how we change our life. Thank you. Any other questions on this end in ways of introducing our next guest?
Oh, hi, on the docket?
No.
You're not on the docket, but I want to give opportunities when people want to hear the children's side of abuse investigation.
And no, and
Yeah, so child welfare with DHS would conduct all the abuse investigations for children.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't go through our team.
Did we get everything on the chat? I think
We did.
we did, but just to make sure, was there anything?
You want to scroll up before the 500 remark just to see if there was?
Shasta has her hand raised.
Josh, please.
Yeah, so oops.
Sorry.
So I was just wondering if if that abuse reporting site that I found was on the Department of Justice's website, if somebody wanted to create a database, a searchable database for IDD providers who were found negligent or abusive, would the DOJ have to do that, or does every single county have their own data and their own thing that somebody would have to collate together?
that would be the state, and they would have, and my understanding. Like, cause you're talking about a registry basically, and I don't know what the state's plan is for that, but the state would have to create that. We don't house a registry. Actually, we're not allowed to by law, so we don't have an abuse registry. But the state of Oregon would be the one that would develop that, and I am not exactly sure where they are with that. I mean, we have CAM, which is for us, our centralized abuse management system, which is where we enter all of the information on allegations of abuse, and then the reports, everything that we do related to serious incidents on the case management side or actual allegations of abuse. is entered, and the state does have data on that, and I also believe that that the licensing side of ODDS accesses that, so they have that information, but there is not currently a statewide database that I am aware of for ODDS providers. A registry where people are listed as having had that other than CAM. And
So
that's not public, and that isn't public. That's private, yeah.
I'm just trying to find out what happens when these lovely people file their report, they find that an abuse happened. And then what? Does anything happen to the abuser? Can they just go and work for somebody else?
So depending on the circumstance, we do well, historically, we've done what we've done, and you can tell me if this has changed, because I don't do these investigations anymore, but there's a reporting that we can do, or that we do when it's like a personal support worker. And then there's a different reporting, like I said, if they're a licensed provider. So group home, foster care home, supported living, that they're notified internally by Otis, by the CAM system. But for a personal support worker, we would say, or and the DSP agency is responsible to determine what happens with their employees. They choose to fire them. And then if they have to do another background check, it should show up that they've been substantiated for an abuse or neglect. But for a PSW, we send it in, and then the state determines if they're going to take action against that person's provider number or not, and say that they no longer can be a provider, or they do nothing. So ultimately, the state makes a determination as to the outcome of that provider, whomever it is. Again, you know, a lot of individuals that investigations we do conduct are family members, people who are not necessarily like paid caregivers. And it might be a community member, might be a friend. A founded allegation of abuse against that person may mean nothing happens to them because they're not in a capacity to have had.
But
that.
to add to that though, it would show up in a background check, right? So if it was on a person, it would, whatever employment they sought later.
If it required them to, like specifically that certain criteria is asked for, so depending on the work. Healthcare people, so people seeking healthcare, I would imagine it would show up on that, but somebody, I don't know what it
As like a-
be an
an administrative
apartment
job or
manager or
something, yeah.
something, it might not, because it's not that kind of work.
That actually is kind of led to a question I had too of what did you see more? Did you see more abuse reports through facilities, licensed facilities, or for family members and friends? Because I know that facilities have, you know, a couple different checks with case management and licensing and so forth, checking in, whereas maybe a family home or an individual living on their own wouldn't have that. So I was wondering that too. And I was also wondering on the neglect reports, are you finding that those are, I don't know how to word this because obviously no abuse is acceptable, but are you seeing that neglect is coming from like a lack of training or like almost an accidental neglect versus somebody that's like really willfully neglecting? Do you see more where better training or better education could maybe eliminate some of that neglect?
I think there are many cases in which training or support of that kind would help, and that's not necessarily intentional. As far as the difference between the numbers of reports related to licensed homes, I think 96% of the reports are related to licensed residential homes. that doesn't necessarily mean that the facility themselves is reporting. It could be a neighbor, it could be a family member, but it is about 96% have been related to a licensed setting. Because people living independently are really rarely, we're really rarely receiving reports.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And just to add to the follow-up, what happens next, basically these are civil investigations, so we're doing the best we can to make a good, strong case for someone else. The authority to do what they can, whether the authority is state licensing or it's law enforcement. We're putting together the most likely case we can to get moved forward by the authority. And then unfortunately, we're not the authority.
Joshua, you're on mute. Oh, you have your hand up. I'm so sorry, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I'm just still really concerned that, there's no way for the public to know what's going on, like,
Yeah.
that's crazy. I would love to see like data. Do you guys put out like the reports? Like, do you have like an annual reporting requirement to the Board of Commissioners or anything, to know about, the demographics that we're seeing here?
Not currently, no.
Okay, and the PAM system that you're talking about, what does that stand for? CAM, C-A-M?
Yeah.
CAM, C-A-M.
Centralized Abuse Management System.
Yeah.
Okay, and that doesn't have any data associated with it?
Well, yeah, it does, but it's not data that's final. Like, what we have access to goes to the state for release, for whatever, if they can release it, they have the authority to release the data on request. It's a public records request. But where we see it, where we hold the data is not official. It's not final because it goes through a review process at the state level before it is deemed a final public record, if that makes sense.
And so the link that I put in, that's the long-term care licensing, that's not associated with what you're talking about?
Not for DD services.
So there's a different system for long-term care facilities than ones that are for people with developmental disabilities?
We use the same kind of computer program, but it's a different, everything else is different. The way that the information is processed and regulated
Because
is.
they're typically developing people who became elderly, and so they have a different system?
It's the same system, the TAM system, we all enter into the same system. It's just we have our rules and regulations are over what we enter, and their rules and regulations are over what they enter, and what ultimately gets produced and shared versus what is required and what happens with investigations, because it's APD, developmental disabilities, and behavioral health, mental health. And we all enter into that same system. But what we enter, how we enter it is different, looks different. And then what ultimately the report out requirements are also different. And again, what I will commit to Ken and I doing is doing more follow-up on where this data lies, where people can access, like if the public wants it, where can they access it from? To see if there's a different answer than mine, which is currently I'm unaware of how the public could get.
I think that'll be helpful for the public and those on the council, so I'll let you guys push if you want more on that. Sarah, do you mind if I have my side, or would you like to go first? I'm okay with it. Is it
No,
on the
go
same
ahead.
topic point?
Yes, and I'm sorry, I know we're kind of running long, probably. It feels like
No, we're
we
not,
are,
because
but-
we got another 15 minutes.
Oh,
Is that
okay,
over?
all
Capital
right.
guest.
Yeah, go ahead, John, then I'll go.
All right, I'm gonna push back on the central, can, is that statewide or is that nationwide?
Statewide.
Okay, so when there's a new service category that comes into our services, and whether out-of-state providers that come in, how is abuse investigation going out from out-of-state providers and those who are working within Colorado, Arizona, New York, wherever, in ways of those providers being checked and balanced within Clackamas County, and how are we helping those state community partners to stay on top of that as we move forward within what we do and how we communicate as a community.
That's a good question. I mean, all providers coming in from wherever they come from are going through a state initiated background check, which includes, I believe, a federal background check. And so whatever systems other areas are using are feeding into those. Wherever those background checks are pulling data from. So I mean, Clackamas County doesn't do that. I personally couldn't speak to that with any knowledge, but.
And then I guess I would follow up on hopefully this last package on no one wants to use their knowledge, but how does those checks change as a provider of a PSW, DSP, a DFS, or whatever the new categories are? How are the background checks and checks, you know, in cross relationships or abuse investigations are checked? Are there any differences if a PSW is you know being checked than a DSP or a provider agency or whatever, host home or other languages that are coming through the system?
For a background check, I know that when they're filling out a background check form, there are different boxes to check. I just don't know what the state does.
Well, isn't that your job to investigate in ways of different ways? I apologize, I'm not trying to be, I just want to understand the abuse part in ways of how they differentiate in different categories. Please forgive me.
Before they ever get to be a provider, that they've gone through the state licensing process, whatever, or state certification process, or whatever the process is. So PSWs get credentialed, DSPs get hired by agencies who are responsible for doing the background checks. Residential caregivers can either be background checked through their agency, or like a foster care provider can use us as the QED. But it's, as far as background checks go, that isn't something that our unit or us here at the county is, you know, we submit background checks for people, but we're not responsible for, he's not responsible to know what background check they've had.
Okay. Because of time, I won't push forward any other question on my side on that, but hopefully we can get some follow-up information of what we were discussing, and that'll be great. Sarah, please. And
So,
I'm gonna push it to 5:50, if there's no one in the public.
okay, so, my daughter is 21, and so we will be starting to look at some point in terms of her moving out and, you know, what that looks like and everything. As a parent, what do I do? What do I do? Who do I go to ask, you know, I mean, I hate to say it, but is this a good place? Is this not a good place? What do I, you know, are there any red flags and any way to see if there's been any founded abuse? What do I do as a parent?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think we would all love to know. I don't think there is, I don't think there really is a clear, easy, centralized way of doing that. It is. I mean, I think we can share an email address at ODDS that you can request records. I mean, there is a records request process. I don't think it necessarily has to take a long time, but unfortunately, it's not as simple as going through a database and looking like all these places look like good places. It's like one at a time, you know, requesting information for each separate place. So I wish I had a better answer, and maybe we will. But at this moment, that's so.
Right, because, I mean, we also are in a position where we're not going to give you the answer that's, at the county, you're looking to be like, is this a good place or a bad place? The county's not gonna necessarily be able to be in a position to say, that's a bad provider. If I was like, say, Sarah's a bad provider, you can't go to Sarah, don't go, I wouldn't recommend it. Sarah would be like, hello, lawsuit.
Yeah, no, I get that. I get that.
So what we do is, right now the state has, provider profiles that are out there. And we highly, highly encourage people to do face-to-face visits and get a feel for the provider and the home and, how you would want, what you're looking for. Because that really is gonna be also you're a mom, you're gonna know if you feel good about what you're seeing or how the person is responding to you.
Are you okay with that answer, Sarah?
Sorta.
Yeah,
no,
me too.
I don't like it either, but.
Well, the problem that I have as a client is I can't even get a list of providers of adult foster homes because that's private information. And it's hard to even, I don't know, maybe it's different on a county side, but I don't know, if I can do even spot checks. Because of that scarcity of information within the public information of those providers that are available, which is, I understand business wise. I understand business wise, but you're telling her that she can just go to a tour. And it's very hard, it just sounds, and I understand the language, but it sounds very contradictory as a client, so. I apologize for that. All right, there we go. I hope I got something on that. Did be a little whatnot. Sarah Lambert, please, just for time's sake. Sorry about that. Excuse me. Sorry, Sasha, I called your name out on that. All right, Sarah Lambert.
So I actually had a question when John was asking about background checks. How long does it, so let's say a personal support worker has a abuse claim that's ongoing, and then let's say they leave their other foster provider and they come apply at my house. How long does it take for a report to pop up on the background check? So that, let's say I have the application process, I say, hey, found it abuse, they lie, say no. How long does it take before that background check is going to kick that abuse report back, so that, I would know 2 weeks later, a month later, how long does it take before I realize, oh my gosh, that person does have something? Is it pretty quick?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I know we have 55 days to complete a report, so if somebody, has an allegation at Aaron's home and leaves, and I mean, you and Aaron would be talking, I'm sure, but but in the course of the investigation still open, they can go and apply with you and get a background check, or you can take however, and that it wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be there. And if, we have 55 days or something, it may be that it wouldn't be caught. That's just the system and the process, how things might get missed.
All right.
So if the 55 days pass and that person is founded, does it kick back to licensing and flag so that you could reach out to providers, or does it just wait until the 1 to 2 year period when we run it again? Do you know that?
It wouldn't
Alright.
flag. We wouldn't get
It
flagged.
wouldn't.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, we don't get flagged unless something gets run. So
Okay.
it would kick back to you in a year or 2 years, however quickly you run it again. At that point, you'd find it and be like, okay, this is a problem.
Yeah. That'd be kind of scary. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kim.
Yeah.
So, we do not have to wrap up to see what kind of next, council, but please, let's continue the conversation for a minute or two.
Just one last question. If,
Please.
let's say that a home or whatever, facility home, whatever, receives the designation of founded abuse and it's something serious, our families, our caregiver, our legal guardians or is anyone notified that, let's say that, I don't know the numbers and everything, sorry, but let's say there are 8 residents in the home and someone has founded abuse, would you notify the other 7? Is there any way for families to find out if something's happened?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, the legal guardian of the person who was found to be a likely victim of abuse, they would be notified.
Mhm.
The other guardians, it kind of depends on the situation and whether or not it affects them. Not as a rule, I mean, not by default, I'll say that.
Okay.
And I'll put on for advocate side, foster home for over 5, let's say, equals an institution, if I remember the law right, but any, current law, we have some other people pushing, but, okay, sorry, okay, my question is, how has AI and ML technology affected the abuse, investigation and other processes throughout the last 2 or 3 years before COVID? And how will it change within operator, with technology, AI, ML technology and ways of how you move forward within the places that you have to investigate?
Well, I don't think it's really had much impact at all, except with the possibility of kind of email scams. I mean, AI is.
I'm just thinking about the oven being on too long, the certain other, like the refrigerator will only unlock at 2 p.m. versus, at 4 p.m. in ways of certain laws and rules within either a housing situation or another situation. I'm just looking for the future for conversation for later.
That's
In
interesting.
other places, so I will stand down on that for now, but I'm hoping that we can kind of get through those type of conversations as we build our communication as a group here. So,
Lisa did say, what law are you referring to about not being able to collect data?
I hope I
Then,
didn't.
yeah, she was talking about the rules and regulations.
For the county to collect that data,
I wonder if she meant to release it.
fully release it,
Because
or
we're
maybe
not-
also.
I don't know, we can follow up and ask her. I don't know. Wow.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate everyone's questions and everyone's passion within this topic. Hopefully, co-chair and myself or whoever does this with me will meet with both of you guys on whatever service changes come through the system, and hopefully there will be a national database and ways of certain communications within making our jobs easier as an advocate or as a job in the government industry. I'm not speaking on their behalf, I apologize, but thank you very much for coming, for your time and effort.
Can I get your email address, Ken?
Yeah, it's K Hanson, HANSON at clackamas.us.
It'll be in the chat for those who are gonna be seeing that on public record. All right, next topic. Can you help me wrap up on this topic, even though I have my own opinion as an advocate and how we move forward with that topic point?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have an open floor at this point. Right, so, if anybody has anything to bring to the table, I don't think we have any guests aside from Austin.
Thank you. Yeah.
Members of the community wise, I don't think we have any guests. Shasta?
Gotcha, please.
Yeah, Lisa and I had the same thought at the same idea, so I was like, the new ODDS director, can we invite her to a meeting?
Yes.
No, we're fine. We might have to get the interim.
We might.
But I would love to get Dana, Donna,
Dana,
yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we haven't met her either.
Can we say her last name for me?
Hiddle.
Hiddle, okay. So Dana Hiddle for public records and ways of the public. Yeah, I definitely will. Co-chair, if we go to the meetings or whatnot, that's a good idea. That'll be great.
They also appointed an interim director today, I believe, Darlene O'Keefe, who's been a longtime ODDS employee over their quality assurance unit. And that just came out in email today. Yeah, And I know Darlene, I've never met Dana Kittle. We had a managers meeting no, it wasn't last Thursday, the Thursday before, and she wasn't there. She was on vacation. So, it was the 2 days before Anna Lancey left, and we haven't had an opportunity to meet her ourselves. And then this morning, an email, they announced an interim associate, which is Darlene O'Keefe. And they announced something else, but I'd never heard of it anymore before. Yeah,
I don't remember.
do you have it?
I don't like being on my phone. But
We can share the email in case you all didn't get it.
there were 2 directives, if I remember, on new employees. Oh, last whatnot. So yeah, I have no problem inviting, on this panel or whatnot. I personally, we can get the intern person or whatever it may be, but we'll try to get the main person, Sasha. I understand. And like I said, for me, I'm someone that tries to go up the chain in ways, but I'll do my best, I have no problem, of us collaborating with that kind of thing. For me, I don't know how long my term is. No. I mean, I'm fine staying, but what I mean is, bylaws and certain things. I know the department has been changing the council views and stuff. Are we wrapped up in knowing those rules and stuff?
So
or we
May
still
is
have
the
any-
election time for the executive council.
Okay,
So every May, we elect the chair and vice chair.
Right.
And by we, I mean you all. And you can re-elect, you can elect new folks, but it happens every May. So I think it would make sense to start that in May.
okay, so I'm willing to be reelected, which is fine, but mainly I'm going on the bylaws. I sometimes have trouble knowing the bylaws within our group in ways of taking opportunities or not. For example, about a year and a half ago, the Junior Road Festival, I got invited to go over there in ways of a community partner, and they wanted me to walk with them, and I decided not to because I was on behalf of the council and a public figure at the time, because I didn't know, what are gifts and what are not gifts in certain aspects within those priorities. So I don't want to get too much on like free something when you're not on the behalf of something, when you do your own individual stuff. But it would be nice to know how we go as a council within those previews, within, that stuff. So I know the boundary as best as I can within, when I'm in a certain environment, how to move forward if I'm still elected or not elected or whatnot into those things. So that was my direction on this conversation a little bit, not just on me, but other members of this council. But open floor wise, we don't need to go into it all the way, but I need some direction within, the upstairs people in knowing those trainings and stuff like that as a chair or as we move forward as Clackamas County, rather than just, we're just here, if we're advisory and we just do advisory, fine, but for public members, it'll be nice for that guidance. So, you guys, how would you guys like to move forward with this information about the chairs then, and other conversations later within the council preview and views?
I think knowing the duties and responsibilities of each position would be beneficial.
Exactly. And I'm hoping that we have that throughout the thing. I've done my best to get those type of information, but as trainings are new, coming up, language, I'll try to keep on pushing for that on my side. If we didn't, what is the point of having a forum if no one votes for anything, and when we vote for something, nothing really gets inserted? Like, for example, the modified mission statement and stuff like that. So what is the point of a vote? I'm trying to take less time on that, but what is the point of having an advisory council and someone voting for something? And how will it help in implementation of that vote? Sorry to get off, this is an advocacy question, I apologize, guys. So I'm asking the county, what's the point of us having quorum and a vote versus the reality of the group just advising the department?
I don't know if I have a clear answer. It's definitely an advisory council. And having quorum to vote for suggested recommendations, and are you saying that we voted on something that
We
did not?
voted for stuff like, for example, I'll put with Caster's recommendation of trying to be at the, when you guys hire something, we would like to be in those meetings.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we've done certain votes over the last 2 years. I know this is just beginning all over again, but we have to find these rules, but that's my question, how we move forward as a council in a way to understanding that. And like I said, it's important to me to show where we did get the vote on certain topics and how we are communicating that within, you know, the position that I'm in today. Yasha, please.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I'm still confused on who exactly we're advising. My understanding was that we would be advising like the Board of Commissioners, and we haven't had a single one come here.
Yeah, my
Advising the staff.
I
because
think
it doesn't
the
seem like they're
way.
asking our opinion on things.
Yeah, my also, the item.
Can
You
I
wanna go? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so I will say is with the voting thing. And you guys are voting on who's on the advisory council. Whether minutes get pushed through, whether you have certain people that you want to see as guests. And you can. Like you did the mission statement, so that was voted on. Which is yours. You vote on the bylaws. If you want to change those, you can change those. As far as training for specific positions, that is definitely needed. I know that last year that our PGA, so Public and Governmental Affairs, was working on some training for not only you guys, but also for the liaisons for all of the advisory boards and commissions. And that is still very much a work in progress. One thing that I've learned is that things move slow. So I know it's been very long that we've been talking about these things, and also understand that it's on the backside, it's also moving very slowly. So for even me to get information on how to support the council, it's all very slow coming in. So I do want to say that, and as far as your role, we are sharing projects and the scope of our program with the council. And then your role is to give us advice on what you think of it and what we can do better. And we can take that down, and I know that we were working on, as far as the hiring stuff and sitting on interviews, there was another one of those background things where we can't implement that until we get permission from the other side of HR to allow others into the hiring panel discussions, because there's got to be a training on that so that we make sure that we're being equitable around that. I will ask, I know that we just had an update. We have a newer person that's supporting our advisory boards, and a new way to kind of track things. So I can ask her if there's been any further discussion on training for liaisons, training for the members of advisory councils. So that's all.
Please some contact.
Lisa?
Please.
Thank you. Can I just confirm though that we as a council are advising to the Board of Commissioners for Clackamas County? Is that our role?
In the bylaws, it says you're advising our program. However, as an advisory board and council, I think you guys can request that that one of them come in here. There was a question, a survey that I completed, and I did put that we haven't had access. So I think it's a reasonable request.
Thank you.
And we can follow up with our director about that too. Because I've never seen a commissioner at any of our councils in the 23 years I've been here. That's all I'll say, but I don't know if we're supposed to.
Or maybe nobody's asked, I have no idea.
I don't know, but our director of social services should be able to provide additional guidance, and there are different types of councils, and I know that one of the things that is a potential who maybe does have more direct advocacy to the board is there's a social services citizens advisory council that then has maybe subgroups of all the different programs within social services that might do some advising. But I would have to get more information to clarify if that's the group that provides the that provides information directly to the board. I don't know the answers, but I do think that we could get more information. Because it's very, it seems like we've been doing this a while and our role has not become any more clear.
We can also,
And I think, I see you all nodding your head, and it feels the same for us.
yeah,
Yeah, I think, I'm gonna call for an extra 5 minutes, if you need to pop off, but I do think it's important. Just like the North Clackamas Park and Rec relationship in your 25 years, which I appreciate your 23.
That's it.
Well, I have to get on record, whatever, but you know, I think it would be time to push in ways of asking those questions, at least approaching their question.
Yeah.
Okay, Lambert, because I thought we would have a closer relationship with other commissioners and other commissioners too. Chair Lambert, please.
So my question, Amy, is for you,
Yeah.
on the hiring, part of it. So I understand having to go through, like equity training and things like that. How often does that have to be done? And the reason I ask that is because when I was on the, one of the hiring teams for the DD director, we had to go through the, equity training and whatnot for that role. So if I did that through them, does that qualify, or does it have to be done in each house? So to speak.
It is, the training is a Clackamas County specific that's going to be, that's being adopted. And so everybody will have to do the Clackamas County training, even if we've had it many of other times on hiring panels. And it's not yet available to the public. It's currently supervisors and managers are going through the training, and then it will be rolled out to the public, anybody else outside, including like our case, any other staff, to also receive the training before they can set on an interview panel.
Okay.
These are three. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering about that. And then the other thing I was going to say was more a comment. It'd be kind of nice in our council if we had not necessarily roles, but kind of like things, you know, we each have our own little background and something that we're specialized in or whatnot. So like for adult foster care, if, you know, as a council, you wanted me to research something on, you know, what I'm familiar with, or bring some information to the council, or, you know, John is an advocate, or for you guys like that are parents or whatever, you know, if we each had our own specific thing to contribute to the council, you know, that might be kind of productive, I guess. I don't know what to say. Maybe helpful. I don't know.
Specified positions and ways of, you know, we tried for those books, but I would agree to put that in the note today and try to figure out, you know, how we select our members and how we use our talent. I think it's important.
Right.
Dash, I'm gonna have to point out, they mentioned about the training of the ODDS, whatnot. I'm taking that from the state system. I want to remind Clackamas County, not all people with disabilities have CAPTCHA phone in the ways of the training. So if they have a non-member link in the training to be qualified within the disability services, I would like to friendly reminder on the training to do it more back way in ways of certification, because I don't remember this. I'm thinking Oregon buys right now, but I'm not remembering the state system, but it is a different process. So Dasha, wrap it up or do what we need to do to.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, as I really have appreciated my time on the council, and I find these meetings to be very informative and educational. But certainly in order to continue to spend my time this way, which is already very limited, I would need to know like what kind of impact is this council going to have? I mean, at some point, somebody decided to create this body. Somebody decided to spend staff time on it, which is taxpayer dollars. It seems like somebody wants to know what we have to say, but I don't know if that information is actually getting to where it's supposed to go. So I very much feel like I need to know the roadmap here.
Thank you, Sasha. As an advocate, I absolutely agree because it's frustrating sometimes when you hit that wall, on my behalf, at least, when I try to point out that I know it's slow, but I don't like slow. But I understand the process in ways, but I appreciate that roadmap comment because it is important to know who to contact, how to contact, and make that change, that the reason why they even implemented it. Even maybe the bill number, if there was one.
Thank you.
All right, I went 8 minutes over, even without other guests, so if someone has more evidence for me to, be happy or not, but I hope your time was worth it within the investigation. Ona, maybe that, I'll talk to my co-chair next meeting to see what guests we need.
We have licensing and ARPA are for next week, but we can request Ona for.
We're good.
I
As
think we'll just
long
have to read.
as the council agrees on who to see next, I'm happy. It's not about me on that. So I'll hopefully have a meeting with the co-chair and all others in ways that we can move forward with these conversations.
Can I say something?
Please.
If anybody wants to know anything about ONA in the interim, like you have a pressing question about our process, or there's something you want to know, please go ahead and reach out. You don't have to wait 3 months till we come and revisit this. Like, I'm happy to talk to anybody about our ONA process or eligibility. I directly support both of those teams, and so we put my email in the chat. It's Stacy MUL. So don't hesitate to reach out, because I saw that there were several comments of interest, and we just spent the 2 hours prior to coming here talking about everything ONA, so I'm happy to talk to whoever about the process.
And the 2 hours before that, talking about our website.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you. I was gonna say, I'm gonna have to highlight that in multi format in a way that.
Oh, we know.
all
We know.
Directors,
We know.
so please put that note, and I'll put my time clock.
You know.
Other adaptive stuff, even though that's not my favorite, but we'll get through that. So thank you very much for your time and efforts, everybody. I hope everything in the public, enjoyed today. Thank you for your work. Thank you guys for coming and doing what you can in ways that we may be frustrated or happy or enjoy, but we do what we can do. Have a good spring break for those who
Thank
did
you,
and
everybody.
everything, and enjoy your
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.